Good evening, everyone. Trevor here, and welcome to week 4. And this week, we're looking at the human-computer interface tutorial. But before we start, I've had a few questions regarding the assignment tasks. I just wondered if anybody had any immediate questions they would like answered regarding the assignment. Mainly assignment 2. I've noticed a number of people are jumping ahead, which is good. And I suppose there's one thing, if it's not obvious, the index page and the CSS file that you received in assignment 1, those files are to be modified. So they're just like starting files for your assignment. So the first thing, what I'll do is I'll just bring in the Crown website. And every time I look at this page, it's slightly different. So we've even got some animation this time, which is pretty exciting. But one thing I do notice is it rarely sort of changes. Cosmetically there are changes, but structurally there are very few changes. Now there is a trick to turn this off, but I can't quite remember. Nope, it's not going away. Okay, so I'll just paste the link to the Crown Casino website. And here's a snapshot of how it was at some point in the past. And I've got the first question off the bat is sort of what are the 4 business areas they're promoting on the homepage? Or another way of looking at this, what types of audience, commercial audiences, is the website appealing to? And we can either look either at this website or their live version. It doesn't really make too much difference at this stage. Note takers? So I'll just repeat the question. So what I'm looking at is just having a look at their website. Crown are targeting 4 types of audience or 4 business markets. So if you imagine people are coming to the website for whatever reason, how has Crown Casino divided up the the website so that it appeals to your average or to the maximum number of users coming to the website. So Alexander's just posted accommodation, eating, music, entertainment, and gambling. That's pretty good. So what we're doing is we're looking, if you think of it from a user case point of view, so there are people who are looking for accommodation, and then there are people who are looking to eat, and people that are looking to be entertained, and there might be some sort of crossover with these two markets. And of course, they're important one, which is obviously people are looking to gamble as well. Now, Timothy's made an interesting observation about socioeconomic stratas. Would you like to expand on that, Tim? That is something I'm hoping to sort of cover. Just checking out. There's nothing obvious on the home page or this screenshot, but in the past, sometimes, particularly with the video, I think at the moment this looks fairly general. I think and also the people they've chosen, they do seem to be an older crowd. I will say that. And definitely more broad. In the past, there was one year where, let me just turn some windows off here. There was one year where we just noticed that there were a lot of old white men and very, very few other people, and maybe attractive women that they might be interested in. But it does seem to be a little bit more diverse now, so which is good. So definitely an emphasis on one thing I have noticed, that they definitely do emphasize on their, I would say, their more high-paying clientele, but of course they are trying to make an effort so that they do attract people who wear flannelette shirts and who might be, I'd say, more down market, but still willing to spend money. So the one thing I want to make a point is that the homepage, what they've tried to do is they've tried to make it as general as possible. But this is largely an intractable problem in that, you know, if you try to be friends with everyone, you sort of end up being friends with no one, sort of thing. But if we have a look at some of these things, sometimes, you know, there's a Mother's Day or Father's Day, but we've got some bottomless lunch that might appeal to people that are looking for value for money, and we've got footy, and yeah, I'd say not just the high class, you know, the kind of sort of more contemporary, sort of 20s, 30s market. But overall, what they're trying to do is they're trying to obviously capture as many people as possible on their homepage, and with a view that most people are going to fall into 4 categories. So they're going to be either doing this, 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 or this. Other people might be coming to the website for other reasons, but their gamble is, ironically, that this is going to cover most bases. So Woo really says Cubs, which I'm not sure if you're saying clubs there or whether you literally are talking about Cubs. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now is we're going to come to this one. So are there any issues with contrast that will impact the visually impaired? So this is something that is a legal responsibility. You need to make sure that you don't sorry, I'm just reading Woo Wheelies. Cashed Up Bogans, I love it. I haven't heard that before. That's excellent. So Crown have made a decision. Their colors are sort of gold and black, and I just want you to basically have a look at this page and see whether there's any potential contrast issues. So there's a calculator here. I'm not sure whether I refer to it in the lecture notes or the tute. But what I want to do is I want to have a look at this color here. So I've just right-clicked on the nav area, and I'm looking. I just want to just find this gold color. So this is the color gold that they're using. So I'll just copy that. And I'm going to pick. I'm guessing this is white. And I just want to make 100% sure. Yep, definitely white. So this contrast calculator, this is saying that the contrast, this white text on gold actually fails WCAG ratings. And this is, if you like, the kind of World Wide Web conglomerate accessibility guideline. So you can see here that there's been a bit of a failure with Crown. They've made a design choice that the gold and white is very important, but the contrast is not really good for people with visual impairment. Now, if we change this to black, though, we can see that that's actually a lot better. So there are some ways we can sort of play here. If we look at the hover state on the website, we can see that they do have white on black and also the gold on black as well. So they are making some attempt to provide better contrast. But this is just one example, and obviously the Crown website, they'll have definitely spent a lot of money on it. They'll be hiring a team of people. But this is one thing that they've missed. And I just want to give you a little bit of reassurance that you know, not even the highest paid commercial websites do get everything correct. So but this calculator here, I'll just paste the link in the chat, is always a good place to come to. When you are just a little bit worried about your numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce these numbers a little bit. I don't know. Just trying to pick. So this version, this sort of gold version, it's a little bit brighter, and you can see that it's got it's, if you like, it's passing a base level of accessibility. So as long as your text is above 18 point or bold, above 14 point, this is considered passable. So let's try and see if we can pick a nicer gold. And I'll just find that gold color. On the right. So this color selector here, this is actually this is working. All these colors are the same hue. So if you like, if this was a tube of paint, the base color is the same, and what it's doing is it's just varying the amount of gray and white that's mixed in with the color. So that's your strongest version of this hue. But if we were to come down here, maybe pick a slightly darker hue, maybe there. So if you like, the shade of color is the same. Now the gold is a little bit darker, but it's still the same sort of hue, and it's, you know, obviously a little bit better. So again, as long as the text is bold, I'm not sure that that's 14 point text, but if you like, we are getting a little bit closer to the right color. Just to be aware, obviously there is a legal issue of making your website accessible, and you know, it's possible not many people sue, but it's something that is theoretically possible. So something just to be aware of. Now, another thing about the Crown website, this website works really well, I think, on a touch screen. But as you sort of hover over things, one thing I notice is if I was just losing my mental faculties a little bit, I might find all this whizzing and popping just a little bit confusing. So I like to think it's well designed. It's very interactive. But you know, this interface is a little bit confusing. However, some things that they do well is they do have this sitemap. So if anybody likes their information structured, it's very busy. Thank you, Sonia. It definitely is. So they do offer an alternative browser way of browsing, and also the contrast, again, it's a little bit suspect. It's this sort of mid-gray on black. It could be a little bit lighter. And so if the standard way of navigating is difficult, you can just go to the sitemap and browse around. And Tim makes a good point. Often with websites that have got a lot of information, you do have to make compromises between, you know, showing everything. You don't want your page to look like Yahoo's front page. And obviously not showing enough, so people don't think you've got anything that they want to look at. Now the next, so the next section I want to have a look at is, we're going to imagine now that I am someone. So I've come to Crown's website. and I'm looking for somewhere to eat. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on the restaurants panel. So if you like, I can see what's available, but I now click restaurants and the whole website changes. And this is another good thing. We've got something called breadcrumbs, and this helps users navigate. And I think if everyone thinks about Canvas, when you're in Canvas, you get to see the same breadcrumbs in Canvas. Whenever you go into discussions, into a discussions group, you'll actually see links going to the parent pages. So let's have a look at, again, the reason why I picked Crown is there's so much to love at Crown, but there's also enough to critique Crown as well. So their text is this color. And the background is this color. Completely fails accessibility guidelines. Let me just swap the colors. It was the other way around. So really not much difference. So again, this link is not particularly well designed, and even this link I don't think is very good either. Oops, no, that's the same color. So swap the colors. Not as bad. So the bigger the number, the better, just in case that's not obvious. But still a big red button for anyone who's got color blindness there. So I've arrived at the lunch area, and the one thing that the website can now do is they can obviously make a decision. I've indicated that I'm hungry, and I've come to the websites because I'm looking for somewhere to eat. But now what they're doing is they're not making a decision on what sort of food I want to eat, and they actually present me with 4 more options. And if we have a look, we've got premium. So perhaps I'm someone, I don't really care about how much it's going to cost as long as it's good. Then there's, I'll go to Quick Bites, and I want you to think about an alternative name for Quick Bites. But there's a can of Coke there in the background. This looks like a sort of wrap, maybe a fast food wrap. And then something in the middle, it's kind of, they've called it casual. So you want to go and eat somewhere nice, but you don't want to pay a ridiculous fee for it. Food court. So Amrith and Nathan came up with that. It's pretty much the same time. In the past, that is what they called it. They called it food court, and realized that name was probably a little bit cheap, or brand unfriendly. So they decided to call it Quick Bite. So they're not actually making a judgment on anyone that wants to go there. So they're just sort of dressing it up as much as possible. So one thing I want to just show you, just by looking at, say, the high-end restaurants. So we click on premium restaurants. We get to see, really nice photos. So obviously the people that are coming here, they want to go somewhere that is nice. Whoa, very busy. And then they've got sort of pictures of foods, some of the Heston Blumenthal, a very famous British chef, if anyone's heard of him, and very much putting their chefs front and center. So we've got the chefs here, even though they're not actually in the kitchen. They certainly supervise the people that go in the kitchen. And all of these things, they've got like little explore more. So as you're putting the mouse over, you can click and then explore each restaurant in more detail. So at each stage, what we're doing is we're funneling the customers down, potential customers, showing them as much as we want to show them without showing them too much. So anyone who's going to be scared away by obviously how much it's going to cost here, they don't get to see any of this. But oh, it's interesting. Private dining and quick bites just swap places. That's a nice little touch. That might be, I don't know if anyone else is following this website, but I'd be interested in whether they've rearranged these two sections because they're now wanting to give a sort of higher prominence. In our world, we sort of read left to right. So usually this corner is the most sought after, followed by this corner. That's just something I noticed just happening without being prepared for it. So if I go to Quick Bites now. Oh, okay. Aramith, first time for you. Okay, that's interesting. They're always, as I said, they're always tweaking this website, so it's always slightly different. I always like being a little bit surprised by what they're doing here. So I've clicked on Quick Bites, and we've got obviously sweets. So some people might be looking for an ice cream after the movie or something. We even have, some, this place doesn't look too bad. And obviously we've got our favorites, KFC and McDonald's, hidden here. Sonia, yeah, four seems to be a magic number. I suppose 4x4 gives you 16 options, which is pretty good. So yes, as I said, this used to be called Food Court, and they do have food courts. So they do let you know. There are 2 food courts in the cinema, in the entertainment complex. Oh, really? Tim's just saying he clicked on KFC. And if you go back to Quick Bites, it disappears. Interesting. It's back now. So again, we've got breadcrumbs, so home, restaurants, Quick Bites. So I can either usually click on the logo to go back. That's a fairly standard trick. But I can go back to restaurants here, or I can go back to home as well. So yeah, I'm using Chrome. So if anyone's using a different browser, I wouldn't mind hearing if there are any subtle differences. Now, if you actually make the browser smaller, it does actually swap to a 2x2 layout. So so this is sort of simulating if you like, an iPad or whatever the Android equivalent is called. And when you get below a certain point, I don't know if in mobile view, let's see. So if you click on here, you can actually get to see what it looks like in a mobile. Sometimes you have to hit refresh, so I'll just give you that warning. So this is what it's going to look like in a mobile. And it's still 2 up. So sometimes these might switch to 1 up, but like a single column view, but they're still big enough to click. So let's try that again. Restaurants. Yeah, definitely the private dining room is over here now. And so when it comes to the products, just a single column view instead. So let's go back to normal. So that's pretty much the end of today's tute. And today's tute is the first one for the supplementary assessment. So if I haven't explained this before, I'll explain it now. At the end of the period, sometimes people's scores will land on the borderline between, say, passing and failing. So you might get 48 or 49. But you also might get 59, 69, 79. And whenever this happens, we are asked to just have another look at people with scores that are on 48, 49, 59, 69, 79, just to make 100% sure that it's a genuine, it's 79. And so the guideline is they ask us to, just make sure that, you've been active during the year, and maybe there's been some small thing that's affected your performance. It's all a little bit vague because, of course, there's standards to maintain. So my interpretation or my strategy of dealing with this is if you submit tute exercises each week, so between weeks 4 and 10, there is a separate assignment area, and I'll just pull that up to see, have I activated it yet? Oh, I'm just about to turn it on. So I've just turned it on, and I'll bring that over. So what I've got is these Google Forms. Notice breadcrumbs here, very helpful. So I've got some Google Forms, and I've basically got the questions in the tutes. Sometimes where there's a lot of questions, I may have not put every question in. So what I'm just after is if you fill these in every week and relatively on time, like don't leave it until week 11 because I'll be publishing the answers. So really, as long as you publish, if you fill this in before I publish the answers, I can accept that as being completed. And I won't actually mark you unless you are on the borderline. And I have found that this does help people. Like I have noticed that since introducing this strategy, the pass rates have been higher. So just getting people to do regular exercises each week does tend to increase your exam grade anyway, without necessarily being on the borderline. So I've just published that, and hopefully I'll be allowed to keep this assignment. As we have been told that there's a committee reviewing all the assignments. Okay, so is that clear? Any questions with regards to today's tutorial? So Sonia's saying all good. And in this week's lab, I can't remember who asked me this. Was it you, Sonia, or somebody else? I did have a link here, but RMIT's been slowly updating their website to the new look and feel. So this has been going on for I think it's been over 12 months now. I wouldn't be surprised if it's even be 24 months. It was you, was it, Sonia? Excellent. So I did have a link to the brand guideline just here, but they've changed it, and so it was a dead link. So I had a hunt around and thought it'll probably be safer if I just pop it in here. So, and also this has been updated, so I'm guessing, I don't know if it's June 18, 2019, but um, I'm hopeful that it's at least it's no less than a year old, or maybe a year and 1 day old now. Actually, now that I look at it, it's got to be at least a year old because I downloaded it on the 16th. So I'm hoping it was from 2018. Now I have opened it up, so I'm just going to find it here. Oh, no, that's wrong. Actually, is Oleg, that was your PDF that you sent me. So sorry about that. Let me get the right PDF. So this is RMIT's guidelines. So whenever you go to RMIT's website, you'll probably see a mix of the old sort of like red background with little squares and red, white, and black. But a couple of years ago, they engaged some brand managers, and they came up with these pretty sort of cool shapes. So they took the RMIT orb and sort of cut it in half and developed a circle. And the negative space here, they've got these little corners, little L shapes everywhere, and they got a square out of this somehow, and also a slightly tidied up sort of staircase shape as well. So I'll just swap over to the lab now. So I'll let you have a look, exercise 1. So if you look deeper into Crown's website, you'll see that their hotels business has a similar sort of breakdown. They'll have, if you like, the top of the range hotel, which I believe will be the tower overlooking the Yarra River. So that flows through the middle of Melbourne. But what they have is they also have a hotel out the back, which overlooks a freeway or a arterial road, and I think that's the sort of more budget hotel area. And then they've got like day spa and things for just sort of getting away from life for a day. So ask a couple of questions. So how many fonts are you allowed to use? So often when you're working with a company, they'll actually give you a brand guideline or a brand strategy document so that you stick to to the guide so that all material that's being produced has a similar sort of look and feel. And what we've got is we've got this Museo font, which I've used in my website. But they also say if this font is not available, and I'll just make the text a little bit bigger. Get rid of the thumbnails. So basically, Museo, that's the heading font, then Helvetica if it's available. And if that's not available, then we have to use Arial. So we don't use Times New Roman or Texta or anything like that. So really, it's only just 3 fonts RMIT like us to use. Now, one thing which before we really had just 3 colors. It was like red, black, and white, and maybe some shades of that. And even though it does look pretty crazy, it looks like there are heaps of colors. There is a limitation on the number of colors. So what they've done is they've chosen a primary color palette. So this is, if you like, your official documentation. This is the more traditional RMIT material. So red, blue, black, and white with some grays thrown in. But they've designed this secondary color palette, and they call it the pop palette. So it's the more friendly pop art sort of colors. But what we've got is we've actually got, say, I'll just check that it's 12. Yep. So we've got 12 hues. And then within each hue, we're allowed to use 4 shades of each hue. And in your assignment, what I'm looking for is that you develop something like this, that you, in addition to black and white, you say try and pick maybe 2 or 3 hues and 2 or 3 shades of each hue, and try and sort of create a cohesive color palette, rather than just picking random colors like green, navy, blue. Try to pick colors that make sense. And even if you're colorblind, I promise you, if you stick with this idea of picking a hue, a couple of different hues, you might not even understand that they look different, and then pick different shades. It's not difficult to create a website that looks as though there's been more design thought put into the website if you just stick to a couple of simple rules. Actually, Amrith, yeah, that's a good point. I wonder if it is June. That might be the June 2016 document. So yeah, that does make more sense now that I think about it. And I think it probably is the original document in that case. June 16. So these RMIT sort of, I call them children's block graphical elements. They call them pixel shapes. And when this website came out, there were a lot of critics in the school. We were like horrified that they had gone with this sort of look. But I'm just trying to find the. Here we go. So these are the shapes that they allow. So if you like, the circle, well, the half circle makes sense. And this step also makes sense. That's strange. They do allow this shape. It seems to be missing from the... Yeah, so they are allowing us to use it. So they've actually made a mistake. They've actually forgotten one, which is this shape here. So what they've done is the half circle, quarter circle are directly from the shape, and then everything else seems to be a little bit imaginative. Like these steps are slightly modified because this step is not quite the right size. And then they've got some just guidance of arrangement. They say no more than 2 on a page, and also not to have duplicates as well, I think. So they've just got some examples of what not to do. So don't put 2 on the same page, don't rotate the shapes, don't overlap the shapes. What's this one? Oh yeah, don't crop the shapes badly, that sort of thing. Oh, and the shapes must be 2 different colors. I didn't notice that. And don't use outlines. So so these are all sort of rules. So if everyone sticks to these rules, it looks as though we're all creating the same. Well, what can I say? There's enough flexibility in the guide that you can create documents that do look different. But if we all stick to these simple rules, we do get a common sort of look throughout the guideline. And Andres, yes, Peloton is a really good, I think, good site. I think I covered this last week, and it's got a little thing. You have to hunt around for it, but it will simulate what things look like for people with different color blindness. Tim's asking, do all your documents need approval? The answer is probably yes, but do they get approval? No, I don't think they've actually got the people power, so the workforce, to actually do that. So mind you, I will say, even around RMIT, like, because I'm very mindful of brand guidelines, whenever I'm given a brand guideline, I like to stick to it. But even at RMIT, I'll notice some posters which they break the rules, and even at RMIT, we'll have some like screen, the sort of startup screen, and they even had some illegal things on there as well, or things that weren't specified in the brand guideline. Coolers, yeah, that's another great that's another good website. Now, actually, Alexander is just mentioning UCD. UCD is a course that was created after we had this human-computer interface week, and we tried to cram a lot into this week. So I'm really glad that that course exists now, because we can just do an overview and just really concentrate on thinking about UCD, or the human-computer interface, with regards to our particular website, which makes our life a lot easier. So what other questions am I asking in the lab? So yeah, this is one other thing, the RMIT coat of arms. I think this is on the very last page. Oh, what's this? I think this is new. I don't remember this handwriting font. So there's now 4 fonts. Okay, so if you've ever got quotes or something, you can use this. So it makes students look like children, I guess. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a new slide. This definitely looks new. This is one thing that annoys me, this M dash. We have to have an M dash on the page. I should really put one in somewhere. Just a stray character that just seems to be there. Also, one thing to be mindful of is whenever you use this background color, you need to use you need to make sure the contrast is good. So somebody's been looking at the contrast profiles. So white on red is probably pushing it a little bit. But they recommend not having white body copy. And some more examples. So some of these might be pushing against the accessibility guidelines, but they've done their best. Like that looks very sus. I imagine that might be very bad. Little guides for buttons, looking very much like Canvas here. Gosh, there's so many slides. I am going to I'll scroll down here. So a lot of this is for print, but it does apply to websites as well. And merchandise. Just plugging our gift shop here. Oh, so many slides. I'm going to have to look for it. Ah, they seem to remove that slide. Sorry about this. I hope this is not destroying anyone's. Oh, that's a shame. Okay, I think they've actually removed the coat of arms. So, well, I'll just talk to that. Obviously, now that I haven't found the original document, they had a coat of arms, and they said that it's allowed to go on business cards as long as you've got permission, and some other limited uses. But you actually had to get approval from the Chancellor's office, so you couldn't just put it on your business card if you were getting them printed. It looks like they've completely locked that up now. So yeah, so then now one thing RMIT have been sort of focusing on is introducing some indigenous styles, which I think look really good. So all of this is brand new, and yes, but there's definitely no coat of arms anymore, unfortunately. So I'll just have to update the. So update. So I'll just pop that up. Make it red. So Alexandra, no, I don't think your link came through. Oh, wait a minute. No, I can't see a link. If you've got any good links, make sure you post them in the discussion board. Which one is it? I think it's something like interesting links for students. Let me just pull that up. Yeah, students' handy tips and resources. That's an excellent discussion group to post. Oh, ignore that plus. I think my keyboard's on the way up. There's no way that plus is near that key there. Oh, that's not good. So I'm just reading the chat that you guys can't post links. Is that correct? That's. I wonder if I can actually. I'll see if I can change that for next week because that sounds a little bit restrictive. So in conclusion, whenever you're designing wireframes, mockups, and style guides with an S, have a think about fonts and sizes you are using. So if you spend just a little bit of time at the start of the project, it does save a lot of time down the track. And then also, if you're creating a palette of colors, make sure you pick a couple of hues and choose different shades of that hue. So sometimes you'll have two colors that are too close. So when I was trying to pick a better gold for crown, you'll notice that my guesses initially made it too yellow. But if you select a color from one of those from that sort of paint palette, you'll get the same hue, but a different sort of shade of that hue. And we'll be looking at colors in more detail next week. So having little shapes, like RMIT have chosen icons and shapes, but a lot of other businesses, they'll have like little cartoon mascots or something like that. GitHub have little octopus characters, and they'll basically generate some octopus characters and sort of scatter them all around. So having little icons and shapes can make a brand more friendly, and it also helps to break up the text as well. And another thing is by having this document, you can then share it with someone who's co-programming with you. So if you are developing your assignment with a partner for this semester, so you can work by yourself or in a group of two, having a brand guideline shared between you can help you both to sort of stay on the same track. So you don't have pages that look very different from one another. Oh, okay. Thank you, Matthew. So all I need to do is change from top chat to live chat. Okay. Now you say it, it's so obvious that that would fix the problem. Good on Google. So that's pretty much today's chat. That's the material covered. So what I'd like to do is just take some questions with regards to the assignment. Now I think just looking through the discussions, I think Darren, I think, had some questions. I don't know if Darren's here. Is Samuel here by any chance? No, I can't see anyone. Oh, you are here, are you? You're Darren, aren't you? Till sky falls down. Yeah, so you said the specifications seem a little vague and you'd like some clarification. So yeah, more than happy to. I mean, you've asked the question. I can guarantee that for every student that asks a question, there's probably 10 looking for an answer. Yes, so the idea of this assignment is that everything is on a single page. Let me just find that word. Yeah, so the client would like the website to be a single page. Now, having said that, there will be a second page, which will be the receipt page. So once a person has finished making an order, the last page they will see will be like a sort of A4 receipt with tickets. So that'll be very different from the website. And it'll be something that you can imagine that they would then just go to a printer and print off or save as a PDF. But is essentially assignments 2 and even assignment 3, it's designed to be a single page that's got sort of distinct areas inside the body element. So that's, if you like, that's header, nav, main, and footer. But then inside the main, this should be 3 visually distinct section elements. So there's the About Us section, just explaining the business, the prices, showcasing the seats. Now, I have provided a price table for you, but please don't just copy this in to the website as is. What I'm saying, this is for you to know and to sort of make attractive to the customers. So you might put a price table in there, but customers don't need to see this. They might be, say, hidden fields or something. This is just information for you to have. So not much information about the company logos, colors, or branding. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping you will come up with. So tonight's material is about thinking about colors that are, you want to have decent contrast. The best contrast obviously is black on white, but that's a pretty boring color scheme. So what I'm looking for is interesting color schemes. So something like how the Crown, Crown have got a well designed color scheme, but the colors don't really meet accessibility guidelines. So this is an example of how not to design colors. But the RMIT brand guideline, they've obviously put a little bit more thought into their colors. So they've got strong recommendations. Where's all their text? Just get rid of that. Gosh, there's so many pages in this now. This didn't used to be 100 pages. This just used to be about 30 pages. So something like this, what they're doing is they're making recommendations of what colors to use, but you can see that, this is not good. I'm sure if I was to put that in that calculator, it would come up as not being sufficient. So yeah, what I'm doing is I'm expecting you to sort of have a play, try and create your own color scheme. Get out onto the internet. It's a small business, so it's a local cinema for local people, and so don't put in any 200 seat 200 seat cinemas. It's meant to be a sort of smaller, more boutique cinema. And so with images, yeah, please get online, have a look. Royalty free is definitely preferable, but you are allowed, as part of education, you are allowed to have a certain fair use quota. So if you do see a photo, even from Hoyts or something like that, you can use it as long as you put in a little disclaimer. And I think I've got a discussion on this in announcements. And maybe it's in the lecture. I think I've got it in the lecture notes. Let me just here we go. So yeah, this is the slide I'm thinking about. So as long as you've got a, you basically are citing, where you found the image from, and state that it's for educational purposes. This is almost like a little free ticket. The other thing is, if you protect your websites, they're not actually on the internet for all the world to see. They're only on the internet for you and for RMIT staff. So that's another advantage. So this can either be for images or for copy, but also if you have been looking at a tutorial, it does help us to understand where you're getting the material from. So you're quite welcome to sort of source things and then adapt those things for educational purposes. Just tell us where you got it from, just so that we can see that you haven't just copied and paste code from somewhere else. So when it comes to the amount of effort we're putting in, so that's a good point. What I do have is I've got a lot of basic marks. So there are just some things that your commit messages are sensible. They reflect the work you completed each step. I'm not looking for war and peace. It's really just so that future you or a code developer can understand the work that you're doing. Usually commit messages are basically, they're actually limited to a certain number of characters, so you have to be concise with the main one. But if you need to put in more information, there is the extended message option. But what I'm doing is I'm really just looking for sensible commit messages, like the main messages are sensible, and just gives some idea of the work that you've been doing. So yeah, this is just making your code is consistently indented. So yeah, what I suppose these ones are a little bit more open-ended, or these two are. So yeah, we're just looking for maybe use of images or colors. Just to get back onto what Matthew said, I've seen some really good black and white websites where they've just used monochrome with maybe just a little hint of a color, so just a little bit of blue or gold or something. And I will say some of the worst websites have been black and white or monochrome, but I've seen some really nice ones, just really beautifully done. So I'm not ruling it out, but I am saying that it's unusual for a purely black and white website to look really good. Sometimes you do need just a little bit of color. So complexity. No, honestly, what we're looking for is the market is just local people in the town. So you might have an idea of what the business is. My base position is that the cinema, has been a little bit old and musty, and people go there because it's just, it's not far to walk. But the seats have been bad, and really the projection hasn't been good. So what they've been doing is upgrading all the facilities. So there's 3D movies and better sound, better seats, but they want to maintain their small town feel. So they may be looking for community. So when it comes to audiences, the local people, maybe even specializing with small community groups, or maybe the local school or something like that. I don't want to give away too many ideas, because then you're just going to use my ideas. But there's an afternoon show during the week. You may want to think about what sorts of people might want to see the movie on a weekday in the middle of the week, sort of thing. So Tim, yes, you can steal images as long as you attribute the source. And the worst case scenario is you'll be told to take the images down. But unless you've really made a mistake, allowing your website to be online, it's unlikely that that will happen. If you use a cool tool, yeah, I recommend doing that. So it also shows the marker that you've actually been thinking about the website. So what you're saying here. because we are looking for, have you been thinking have you been thinking about what you're doing? Is there evidence that you are doing your assignment? That, I'll put that bluntly, it is a problem. So if we can see, development, and it's clear how you developed your assignment, that's actually very valuable. And I would say, if you do find let's just say, if you do find some good image repositories that aren't the standard ones, so like Instagram is usually a good one. Flickr, obviously Google Images will pretty much find everything you want. But if you do find one that's got, like, say, high quality images, feel free to pop that in the discussion group, handy tips discussion group. Tim's saying, how do you show that in the comments? Honestly, I'm not expecting much, just a simple, comments like this, just nearby. But if you don't want to sort of disturb your code, you can maybe put them all at the bottom of your page, maybe in sort of below the footer. Just put all your references down the bottom. It's up to you, as long as it's easily understood. But sometimes I think if you're writing code and you're having a conversation, so in this case it's the marker, but if you're having a conversation with the person who's theoretically helping you develop the website, having comments throughout your code does sort of help tell the story of how you develop your website. So Darren's asking about frameworks. Yeah, if you use a framework, you're basically learning. You're learning the framework, and we've got some tasks that will require you to do things in basic JavaScript. So if you've got a framework that's doing it, you won't be eligible for those marks. So just watch out for that. And with the CSS, what we want you to do is just demonstrate that you can do contextual selectors and class selectors, ID selectors. So if you're using a framework, that means that, again, those marks will be locked out. So they'll be present in your website, but you haven't, it's not your work that's doing that. Now, having said that, if there's anything that's extra to the assignment, so if you look at the assignment guide, it's fairly, most of the marks are for basically basic things. So you've used padding and margin inline blocks to eliminate cramped and stretched out content. So if there's something that's not in the marking guide but you'd like to have in there, and you see something on the internet, like the classic example is a slideshow. So having posters that sort of zoom in and zoom out, it's not actually asked for in the assignment. So if you want it in your assignment, but you don't want to write an automated gallery program, you can actually put one in, as long as it's bells and whistles stuff. So stuff that's not actually in the assignment. That's an acceptable use of putting in some extra material. As for bonus marks, this is something that I will say is being cracked down on at the moment. It's not really clear there's no cohesive policy about bonus marks. So if you like, my bonus marks are for the tutorial exercises, and those bonus marks come into effect if your score is on the borderline. But if you do some extra things in your assignment, because that's another thing we do, is we also look at your assignment if you're on the borderline, and we'll say, oh, they did do some extra stuff. There weren't marks allocated for it, but again, that just shows that you've been committed during the semester, and that you deserve a little bit of extra credit to get you to the next mark level. So yeah, I've got bonus marks, but they're just kind of like grade bracket boosting marks. They'll just come to effect if you're on that borderline. Now Tim's saying unified CSS. No, sorry, unminified CSS. Yeah, please don't minify your CSS because it's very hard to read. I get the reason why you would do it for, if you like, the production version. So when you're developing a website, obviously you have editable code, human readable code, and then when you deploy a production version of the website, you obviously want to do as much as you can to optimize the speeds, and then that's when you would produce a minified CSS, which has got all the white space cut out. And the same thing is true for JavaScript. Minified JavaScript files, when you take out all the white space, you can often, maybe save, I don't know, 20% of the space. And renaming variables to things that don't make any sense. So you pick a useful name for a variable, and then when you minify it, you just say A, B, C, D, E, etc. So we're not actually looking for performance or production level assignments at this stage, just the development stage. Now, I think someone called Benjamin, I'll just check that discussion. Oh no, it's Honorata had a problem with the sticky nav bar. Are you here tonight, Honorata? You've got a... Just looking for your image in the chat. Can't see you. I don't think you're the only one with this problem. Robert Priest, I think you raised this question as well. So I just want to show. So we're actually jumping ahead, but it's nice to see. It's nice to see students are skipping ahead. So there's a CSS style called position, and one of the options is to have it to be sticky. So what it does is it'll stick to the top or bottom of the parent container. So and I've got the example here. So I'm going to choose the top style. So it's sticking to the top of its parent element. But the problem is Okay. Bad example. Let me just. So it's lecture 5, page 49. I just need some extra slides. So at the moment, it's sticking to the top of its parent, but as soon as the parent goes off the screen, it also goes off the screen. So that's a bit of a problem. If your navigation is not inside the body tag, so the parent of the navigation needs to be inside the body element. Otherwise, it will scroll off the screen like that is doing. So this navigation bar here, this navigation bar is sticky. So I'll just scroll right to the top to show you that. So it's here, and then it scrolls up, and then it sticks to the top because it's a direct descendant of the body element. So Lockie, you're off. So Kath, you later. So yeah, if you're having that problem, it's just because the parent element needs to be on screen, and at the moment the body element is always on screen. So Darren, you're asking about breakpoints. If you want to use media queries, I strongly recommend you do. I think media queries are easy to understand. A decision was made that it was a little bit too complicated for students at your level. I didn't agree with that, but what we're doing is we're looking for, let's just say it's mobile friendly, so the content does adapt. So you're not scrolling left and right on a smaller screen. And so the only thing you really need to do is just check that it works in a narrow window. So if you look at these slides, they do have problems with the pre elements. So these elements here are going off screen. So it's just like little things like that we're looking for. So inline blocks, and we'll be looking at inline blocks very soon, they will reflow on a page. So you can have multiple inline blocks in a large window, and they'll reflow into a single column on a small window. But media queries are a lot better because they'll behave more like Crown's website, where if it's above a certain resolution, you'll get 2 up. Sorry, if it's below a certain level, you'll get 2 up, but if it goes above a certain level, you'll get 4 up. Darren, yes, these lectures are mine. One year we got some budget to do some teaching materials that were interactive, and I pitched my idea of actually having a website that's a bit like W3 Schools, and it was way more work than I expected, and I'm always playing with it as well. But I really like the idea of having, if you're teaching HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it's been actually nice to have a website that uses all those tools. We had PowerPoint, and it was just, it's very hard to show PowerPoint. You're showing some PowerPoint slides, and then you click to a website. I've tried as much as possible to embed everything inside the lectures. So Robert, you're saying the navigation it's not going to the bottom of the site. So have you got something like my footer, some navigation in the footer as well? So as long oh, actually my footer's not not sticky to the bottom. It's actually fixed to the bottom. So this navigation, this is sticky because it's not always at the top. So that's why it's position sticky. But if you want something to always be on the bottom, say position is fixed and bottom is 0 pixels. I'm glad you're feeding back on my slides, because sometimes I get comments saying, where is the PowerPoint? We were missing the PowerPoint slides, and I never know really what to say. I mean, you can print the slides if you're one of those students. You can always print the slides and get a PDF version. Actually, I think I've explained this in the past. If you click on print, this is a media query. This is going to print all the slides in one big giant PDF right now. So what I've got here is, that's interesting. The footer shouldn't be showing. I'm not sure why it's showing. That's usually hidden. I'll have to check. I may have made a update and not seeing that. But this has got a separate style sheet. We'll be looking at this next week. Do I have a media query? No, I can't see them straight to hand. Maybe I'll have to say prints.cs. Here we go. So yeah, this is my print.css. So what I've got is media print. So whenever it's a printer, these styles are applied. And for some reason, the footer is showing. So I'll have to pop in. Yeah, footer display none. So it shouldn't be displaying, which is a bit of a pain. But if I've actually got some snap points here, so if it's in landscape mode, this one will take effect. If it's in portrait mode, this one will take effect. And I've had to put in some emergency ones just to make sure images don't get too big. So I'll just put in a maximum width on there. By the way, honestly, if you ever have a question about your website, just say, I'm having problems with this, and just send me a link to your assignment, just so I don't have to open up Canvas, search for you, get your student number. I'm more than happy to take a quick look and just see what problems you're having. And one of these things, I'm really good at diagnosing other people's problems. I just wish I was this good at diagnosing my own problems. So usually I'm pretty fast. I can say, I can see what you're doing wrong, and just let you know what the correct thing to do is. So yeah, a couple of people have been emailing me saying, describing what their problem is, and I've just had to spend a few minutes trying to, get your student number and open up your website. Whereas if you send me a link, I can just click on the link straight away and get to your problem immediately. Just a little bit of a tip on getting speedy feedback and help. So coming back to Robert, is it like an annoying, say, 5 pixel gap? I'm just wondering if that's what could be going on. The default padding for I don't know if it's HTML and the body one, it might be both of them, is about 8 pixels. So if you, that's like the default browser setting. So in my websites, let me pull up the style sheet. So I usually put my layout styles in layout.css. Let me just open that up. So what I usually do is HTML body, I usually say 0 padding and 0 margin. And that means the content inside body gets to be the full width and the full height. So there's no annoying little gaps around my elements. Oh, I see. I have some other assignment answers in my style sheet here. This is another thing. If you see my website is doing something that I asked for in the assignment, you can probably just cheat and come to my style sheet and work out how I'm doing it. That's another advantage of having these lecture slides. Darren's just talking about the CSS reset. Yeah, there's a really good, I suppose that there's like an original, I can't remember his name. I think he wrote it like many years ago. It basically resets all the browser styles so that you really do work with a blank slate. I do recommend it. I suppose the only disadvantage is sometimes if you use a browser reset style sheet, you have to put everything in. So like list bullet points and all sorts of things like that. So I basically have, I have some elements of browser reset style in my style sheets, but I usually don't have a full browser reset style sheet. Eric Meyer, is that the person I'm thinking of? Just ring a bell. Yeah, I've got a feeling that Eric Meyer might be the original person who I'll just pull his website. This is a style sheet where basically everything is being reset. So even paragraphs, for example, have no padding and margin. So that if you like spaces between your paragraphs, this knocks it out. It also resets the font size to 100%. So all your headings are going to be the same size. So, and he's got some older ones. So there's not much to it. This is just a small small style sheet that basically knocks everything out. And he's been doing it for a while. I think, yeah, this looks like the original one I'm used to. Actually, I'm just wondering if Edward is here. I've noticed there's a new post in the assignment 2 discussion forum. Yeah, so Ed, if you're listening, I'll probably reply to this. You can't edit through WinSCP because it's saying you don't have PHP installed correctly. You shouldn't be using WinSCP to connect to your local machine, but I'm not sure if you're. Yeah, I'll probably reply to your email. Sorry, discussion post. Maybe after the chat. I won't do it right now. The other nice thing about the reset, though, maybe I'll just bring it back. Is it lists all the HTML elements. So this is, if I was to if I was to set a ridiculous exam question, which is to says name all of the HTML elements, and you could just basically cheat and look on your phone really quickly. This is the website that you'd come to. I would never ask such a question because it would be too unfair. It's a memory related question, but it does give you a list of all of the elements. There may be some more. I'm not 100% sure. So there's I suppose there's not that many. I always think there's much more, but I mean there's a lot, but it's not as many as I thought there were. And actually, I'm quite glad each line has kind of got similar ones grouped, which is good. So if you recognize, say, emphasis, but you don't know what DFN is, because I don't know what that is, you know that all of these are somehow related. These all look like inline elements, maybe paired inline elements. Oh, definition. That's what DFN is. Yeah, so they all look like they're grouped logically as well as neatly. Well, we still got a bit over 10 minutes. Would you like to have a look at assignment 3, which has been released in draft mode? So there may be changes, but I still haven't heard any changes for assignment 2. So I'm hoping that there won't. I think it's getting a little bit too late for the school to make any changes to the assignments. So let me go into... another thing, I'd just let you know, I am dropping the answers into the folders. Well, not every week, obviously, because then everyone would get full marks in those tests. But just look out for them. They will appear maybe about a fortnight after. I want to give everyone enough chance to do the exercises each week. So, so let me go into public. So assignment 3 is going to focus on the JavaScript component. So there's a little bit of navigation programming. So as you're scrolling, I want, as each section scrolls past, I want the navigation background or something to change, just so it's clear what section you're on. And something that would normally have gone into assignment 2 is in assignment 3. And this is the booking form, which is HTML, essentially. So last week I was sort of talking around this, but not... I didn't want to talk too much because it was so far in the future, but I wouldn't mind just talking about this, which would normally have been inside assignment 2. So I'll just... I'll quickly go through everything, but the booking form is what I'm aiming for. So first of all, a couple of people, I emailed, sent out an email to everyone who hasn't submitted, just to say, make sure you submit to Canvas. And I've had, I think, about 2 or 3 more submissions. So you make sure you make an official submission to Canvas. So this is the booking form. So this is just a rough mock-up. Feel free to improve on this if you like, but this is definitely a good baseline for how your booking form should look. So there need to be 3 hidden fields. I'll talk more about that in a moment. So what I've got here is I've got a field set. So I'm grouping some fields that sort of belong together. So standard seats need to be in a field set, and the number of adults, number of concession, number of children, and a little drop-down box. And hopefully I've said, yeah, basically what you need to do is have, these are the values. So what I'd like is the first one to say, please select, but the value will be blank. And then numbers 1 to 10. So you can't order more than 10 seats. And also, more importantly, you can't select 0 seats. It's either blank or it contains a number. Darren's just said assignment 2 has a preview that doesn't show up. Yeah, if you can tell me what page that's on, I wouldn't mind checking that. What I decided to do is actually break up what was assignment 2 and assignment 3 into 3 assignments. So some pieces may be, I might have some pieces that are in the wrong assignment. So Darren, if you could let me know, I'm more than happy to fix that up. So we've got standard seats, first class seats. These are, as I said, these are field set elements. So don't try to create this using CSS and stuff. There is a form element to do that. And there's a total field. This should really be a span, but if you want it to be a read-only field, that should be fine. To display the total. And also some I'll say text-based elements. Not all of them are text-based, and these these are basically basic input fields, and they will need either some patterns or some JavaScript to make sure the content you're putting in is valid. And when you press order, if you put the action of your form to the Lunardo form test script, so you say action equals this, then the script will give you some feedback on whether the data you're sending is correct. And also for the marker, when they press order, they'll be able to see a bit of a summary of whether, A, you've named the fields correctly, B, the values are legal. And when it comes to legal values, what I'm saying is whatever's selected, there's no way we can select an illegal value. So if I select 5 adults, I want to see 5. I don't want to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I just want to see the one that I've selected. Oops. So that's what happens when you come to the page without any data. So at the moment, there's no post data and no get data. So make sure you use the right method as well. Some people are submitting the right data, it's just they're not using the right method, and it will end up in the URL. So basically building the form, that's something you can get on with fairly soon. But if you like the wiring up, the JavaScript component, that will take a little bit more work. But most of this can be done with patterns. And I give you a big clue here about the email field that's needed. So we will need some patterns, and the expiry is down here. Now, with the expiry, some people will rather put in 2 fields. So you'll have a year that it's expiring and a month that it's expiring. That's also acceptable. So if you are doing that alternative, the processing script won't show you it won't show you that it's legal, but the assignment markers will be looking out for those alternatives. Yes, Darren. So the form, we're going to try and put in some faulty data. So if we put in, say, an Australian land number, landline number, or an American phone number, we want it to be rejected. So unless you're submitting an Australian mobile number, we don't want you to make a booking, essentially. And yeah, we're allowing credit cards with this many digits and optional spaces, just single spaces. So they're allowed. So if I have some spaces in there, it's allowed, but I'm not allowed to have, say, double spaces. They're only allowed to be single spaces. So there's a little bit of JavaScript going on here. So in the previous assignment, in the synopsis area, there are some buttons. So when you click on those buttons, we want you to update the hidden fields inside the form, and that this is a JavaScript task. So there are some hidden fields that the user can't see, and those fields are only settable by clicking on the buttons inside the synopsis area. So that'll be the movie ID, the day that it's playing, and also the hour that it's playing as well. So Darren's asking about the validation. can it be HTML5 or JavaScript? You will find that most of the validation can be done using the pattern attribute. Let me just scroll down. Actually, you can get away with not doing any JavaScript for these fields. Let me just double check. You will need a little bit of JavaScript for this field, but we'll be covering that in a tut, because you obviously don't want to have a year that's in the past. So you'll need to be doing a little bit of programming using JavaScript or maybe even PHP to make sure that a year is not in the selection list. And there are some little bonus things to do. You might actually think about, let's just say the year is 2019. January would not be allowed. You might want to write some JavaScript that disables every month before the current month. Not essential, but if you're just looking to do some extra bells and whistles stuff, that might be a nice little JavaScript project. So we do look out for things a little bit extra, but it's not an expectation of the assignment. But essentially, you will need to have JavaScript in order to complete this programming. When we get to PHP, we will have to do the validation again because JavaScript can be hacked. So it saves time for honest users, and I do talk about that in the JavaScript area. So 99% of the time, JavaScript is fine, but PHP has to do a second check just to make sure that you know, a hacker is not messing around with the form. And markers will be, you know, trying to, well, basically, because I've actually got a button here that turns JavaScript off. So when I click that, JavaScript doesn't work anymore. So I'm then allowed to right-click, go into the inspector, and make a submission. Actually, I'll just say form. One way to do a quick check. Form validation. I think it's no validate. So if you're ever worried about your JavaScript, sorry, your server-side code working, and you don't want to turn all your JavaScript off, you can just pop in this. You can pop in this attribute called no validate, and that will not do any Java. That'll turn all JavaScript validation off for that form. So this is what I do when I'm testing my server-side validation. I just pop in a no validate, and once it's working, I then take that attribute out, and then JavaScript and server-side validation is working again. This is all advanced stuff. We will be covering it fairly soon. Assignment 2, Assignment 3. So was there anything in Assignment 2 that didn't make sense? Oh, Assignment 3 preview. Yeah, what I've got here is this is just a preview of what the assignment 3 task was going to be. I was hoping that I could release assignment 2 and assignment 3 and 4 at the beginning of the period, so you could more detail. I think detail is fine. So yeah, what I wanted to do is just to say, if you want to do some more HTML programming in assignment 2 because you're ahead of the game, feel free to look at assignment 3. And because there is some, if you like, weeks 1 and 2, creating this form is really a week 3 task. After you finish the HTML section, you should be able to build this form. It's just the wiring up of this form will take a little bit more time. So Nathan has to go, and I've noticed we are now over time. So are there any more questions? If not, I'll close tonight's chat and answer Edward's question, hopefully, in Canvas. Glad to hear you're up to speed, Darren. The other thing with the rubric as well, I've got 4 columns, but obviously some tasks will be very binary. It'll be, have you done it or haven't you? So the but what we're looking for is like a near, like a a near perfect completion of a task for the full mark. So if you've done like maybe one thing wrong or something, so I'll just sort of come to the marks allocation. Sometimes if you try and do more, you'll break something. So what we usually do is we'll award 1 mark for something that's near perfect or near perfect because you've made an effort. But a lot of these will be hard to, if you like, get completely. They'll either be completely wrong or completely right, I think. I'm not sure. Yes, so basically 0 is for not attempted. Then there's some attempt, is there's some work there that looks sincere. Then there'll be, you've really made the effort, you've almost got it working, and then there'll be, it's almost perfect. Maybe 1 or 2 minor things you just have to fix. So Robert, you sent me an email, so I'll look out for that. And whoop, over here, please. So Robert, so I'll respond to your email. I haven't, it hasn't come through yet. But I'm sure that's just a matter of time. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'll close tonight's chat. I'll stick around. I'll still respond to the chat window, and I will see you all next week.